Hi, everyone. My name is Jacklin, Community Manager for the South African Trade Desk. Today, we're talking about something really exciting and incredibly relevant for South Africa right now: climate finance. A number of South African businesses have just been selected for the Climate Finance Accelerator, a prestigious global technical assistance program designed to help climate-focused projects access the funding they need to scale. Today, I'm joined by Dorian Wrigley from Peco Power, one of the businesses participating in the program. Dorian, welcome. It's great to have you with us.
Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Before we dive in, could you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what your business does?
Peco Power is a proudly South African kind of invention. It was developed at Wits University by Professor Willem Cronje and his MSc and PhD students. They've been working on this, what we call the PowerBrick technology, since about 2010. In around 2018, 2019, Prof. Cronje gave me a call, invited me over to the lab at Wits University, and what I saw was something that really inspired me. So much that I said to all my other partners in the impact investing group that I was part of, I said, guys, I really have to spend the rest of my time focusing on this technology because it really is something quite special.
Load shedding reshaped how South Africans think about energy. Has that been a catalyst for your business or your sector?
Load shedding actually hasn't had any impact on our business, and I'll tell you why. Our customers are people that are permanently being load shed. Our customers are people that have absolutely no access to electricity. They're not connected to the grid. And up until now, there have been some amazing products out there called solar home systems or standalone energy systems, but they've all been limited because none of them are able to expand and grow through normal plug and play technology. Whereas what Prof. Cronje and his team were able to do was they were able to develop what looks like a standard solar home system, but effectively under the cover, it's a DC grid that grows from one system to multiple systems by simply just plugging in additional units together. And so what you're able to do is you're able to go into communities that are using candles, using paraffin, using wood to cook, and you're able to kind of start them with something that is lower than the cost of what they're currently paying for candles and paraffin per month. And you're able to grow them from there to full refrigeration capability inside their homes. And these are for people that have absolutely no access to energy, never mind clean energy, but no access to energy. And so load shedding hasn't really affected our business, because we're looking at those people that are permanently being load shed, if I can put it that way.
Beyond solar and wind, what emerging technologies or models do you think will define the next chapter of energy transition in South Africa?
It's a great question. And to be honest, there's a lot of things that are kind of coming up. There's green hydrogen that we hear about from time to time. There's biomass we hear about. We're even hearing about small modular nuclear reactors that might be able to do something. But to be honest, Kia, I am not an expert in any of those additional energies. To be honest, I actually think solar and wind are going to be the go-to renewable energy sources for a while. They're proven, they're working, and especially in Africa, we have such incredible solar credits. That's one thing that we really are blessed with, is great sunshine almost across the entire continent. And I think we're going to be exploiting that for many, many years still to come.
The CFA focuses a lot on investment readiness. What does that actually mean for businesses like yours in practice?
That's exactly what we need. So our customers are not middle income customers, not high net worth individuals. Our customers are those that are often living on less than $2 a day, $2.10 a day. Those are our customers. Yes, if I replace their energy source with a clean energy source that displaces what they're currently spending on, paraffin and candles, that makes it more affordable. But to be honest, if there was a group of people that need a subsidy, this is the group of people we're talking about. These are the people that are going to have their lives most transformed by the first electron that we're able to give them. We've rolled out our systems in Ermelo, one of the just energy transition towns in South Africa. We were able to install our system in about 410, 420 homes, a number of small businesses. And when we went back and actually found out what impact it had, the number of people that said they sleep better at night because the air quality is better, we weren't expecting that. But that's the level of kind of impact you can have by simply putting a small green energy lighting source into homes and removing candles and paraffin. And of course, when you start talking about the ability to educate their kids after dark when you talk about their ability to use it as a way to cut down costs and generate income, believe it or not, people are using their solar home systems, that Peco PowerBricks, to charge neighbors' mobile phones and charging them 5 Rand, 10 Rand a time to do that. And so not only is it creating a difference for that family, health-wise, education-wise, but it's also becoming additional source of income for households that, may not even have a formal business, but are using it to generate additional wealth for their families.
What stage is the business at right now? And what does the next 12 to 24 months look like for you?
I would say we're at the early growth stage of our business. We are post-revenue, we post-pilot, we've demonstrated that it works. And we're now at that stage where it says, well, how does one take a business with a product like ours and a business model like ours, and how do you really scale that? And what our business needs, quite simply, is it needs access to significant amounts of capital. And let me explain why. That's not because our costs are high. We keep our costs as trim as we can. But if you think about a product, and our entry-level product probably retails in a community, in a township, for between 2,500 and 3,000 Rand, that is still out of reach for almost 90% of our customers. So the way you make that affordable is you try and bring that price down to 100 Rand a month, 150 Rand a month. But in order to do that, you need a big working capital fund that allows me to build a whole lot of PowerBricks and then make it available to communities over 24, 36 months. And if you think about it, that means I run out of capital quite quickly. If I want to build 100,000 systems, we're talking about, my math right now is at 30 million, 300 million Rand. We're talking about a large amount of money. And so the single biggest thing that's going to unlock value for us and create wealth opportunities and growth opportunities for the poorest of the poor in South Africa and Africa is going to be access to significant amounts of capital that is patient enough, focused enough on figuring out how we can make sure that gets replenished over a 24 to 36 month period.
What are the biggest barriers holding back green businesses in South Africa? Is it policy, funding, infrastructure, or something else entirely?
I don't know about green businesses in general, but I can tell you about our green business. I can tell you now it's funding. Policy will impact that, of course, because you may know this, Kia, but in South Africa, there's something called a free basic electricity grant. And indigent households have access to a free basic electricity grant if they earn below a certain amount. But here's the catch. You have to be connected to the grid. Then you qualify for a free basic electricity grant. The challenge is that we still, believe it or not, in South Africa, there's still somewhere between 1.2 and 1.6 million households. That's 6 million people, 10% of our country, that still have no access to a grid connection, which means they have no benefit from a free basic electricity grant because they don't qualify. Now, government and Treasury are working on an alternative free basic electricity grant, and that will unlock significant ability for us to serve customers and make this product even more affordable to them. And so it's funding. And to that extent, policy has an impact on that funding. But if policy is delayed, if I could have access to patient capital, patient debt, that would unlock value for our customers as well.
South Africa is navigating a just transition away from coal. How does your business fit into that story?
I love that question because it factors in a number of ways. Number one, our product is a green product. And so automatically it means that it's clean. Secondly, for every single system we put into somebody's home, that means that is a grid connection that is not required. And therefore, there's no chance that there's going to be coal burnt somewhere in order to give that customer some addition, to give them some power. And so just because we have a green product, it automatically contributes to that just energy transition from a carbon perspective. But it does more. Because we know that as coal mines shut down, as these power stations shut down, jobs are going to be a challenge. And so our business model is based on the following. What we're doing is we're saying, even though we're based in Johannesburg and our production facilities are currently still at Wits University, we are looking at ways to move those production facilities closer to the source, to the customers. And we are moving that last mile, what we call the last mile of the business, where you're signing up customers, where you're doing the installations, etc. We're trying to make those as far as possible community owned and community driven. And so what our business model is based on is not having all the jobs in Johannesburg somewhere hundreds of kilometers away from where the community communities are that need it, but to create as many of those jobs as possible in the communities where jobs are scarce, where capital is scarce, and where people have to often move away, not because they want to, but because they're forced to in order to find some way of being able to create wealth for themselves and for their families. And so we try and put as much of that economic activity back into communities, and we try and get the communities themselves to own that distribution part of our business.
Are you seeing more appetite from local investors for green businesses, or is the money still largely coming from international sources?
We are seeing impetus developing in the local market. I would say that on the whole, though, most of the grant funding, most of that type of capital inflows are still international. But Treasury is working on a local subsidy, alternative free basic electricity, and we're hoping that that's going to happen rapidly. And then more recently, I've been very encouraged because some of the larger family offices have started showing a real interest in Peco Power as a business, and that's exactly the kind of patient capital that you need to get behind a business like ours. It's not as exciting as solar modular reactors, for example. It's not a SpaceX kind of like growth, but I believe the impact is significantly more than 10x. You're talking about 600 million people in Africa. That's half the population on the continent of Africa. And if we can have some impact at that part, to me, that's a much more exciting story than a SpaceX IPO.
Once the program wraps up, how will you measure whether it was a success for you and your business?
Only one thing, we might need capital to get us to that one thing, but the one thing we're going to want to see is that if we were able to serve X people before, we'd like to be serving 10X people afterwards. So that's what it's going to be. After 12, 24 months, I want to see that we are serving 10 times as many customers as we were serving when this program started. And yes, we probably will need capital to unlock that, but that's the factor we want to see. How many people's lives can truly be impacted by what we're doing?
If your business achieves everything you're hoping for, what does that change look like for communities, for the environment, and for South Africa?
Well, there's a big push across Africa for what's called universal access, universal electricity access. I've been very encouraged. This last week, I was at the Africa Energy Forum down in Cape Town, and a lot of the African nations have set real targets. There's something called Mission 300. Mission 300 says we want to connect 300 million people to the grid by 2030. I don't think we're going to get there. It's been running for 5 years so far. It started 2025. So far, 50 million have been connected. That's great. That means there's still another 250 million that need to be connected over the next 3.5 years. That's going to be a serious challenge. So I'm hoping we get close. Already I'm hearing people starting to adjust it to a 2040 target, which probably seems more realistic. And of course, the 300, the 600 million numbers we throw around means that there's no more population growth. Of course, we're going to have population growth, which I think is actually a positive for our continent, to be honest with you. I would say we've got to keep pushing towards those targets. Let's set ourselves those bold Mission 300 targets, and we've got to push as hard as we can. 1.6 million households. Okay, so that's a small part of the whole, but it's still not insignificant. But throughout Uganda, Burkina Faso, name an African country, every single one of them is aligned on this objective to say, how do we move towards universal energy access? And it's an exciting space to be in.
Green businesses often have to balance profit with purpose. How do you personally navigate that tension?
Yeah, I love this question, and I'll tell you why. Because I actually think the question, I don't think it's phrased correct. But yet, most people I speak to think about it that way. They think in terms of either I'm profitable or I'm a purpose-driven business. And so the thinking is, how much profit should I be giving up in order to do a bit more purpose? At Peco, we don't think about it that way at all. We are a purpose-driven business. Our purpose is to create energy freedom for as many people in Africa as possible. That's our purpose. In order for us to achieve that purpose, we need to make a profit. So they are not mutually exclusive. In order for us to keep doing what we're doing, we have to do it profitably. We see it this way. We see, how can we solve one of the world's greatest problems? How can we bring solutions to one of the world's greatest problems? But how do we do it in a way that's profitable? And so instead of saying it's either purpose or profit, we say it's all about purpose. Now, let's figure out how we can actually do this in a way that creates enough profit so that we can keep doing it for a really, really long time. That's why I think people actually think about that question incorrectly. Every business, I believe, should be purpose-driven. And then you should figure out, now, how do we make it sustainable? And that's where profit comes in.
Who or what has
Certainly.
been your biggest source of inspiration on this journey?
Let me tell you a story. A few months ago, I was walking through one of the little dusty streets in Omelo where we were rolling out a project of ours. As I was walking down the street, I came across this woman. Her name is Rebecca. And I'm actually surprised, but the impact that Rebecca has had on me since that time is so significant. I find myself telling this story over and over again. So as we're walking down the street, she's in her yard. She's got a lovely little kind of fenced off area, but the typical corrugated iron shack because she doesn't have much money. And I walk in, I greet her, and she invites me into her yard. And so we start talking. Inside, her 13-year-old daughter was preparing for a math test whilst looking after a 6-month-old sister. And I start talking to Rebecca. And it doesn't take me long to realize that my preconceived ideas about Rebecca and what she needs are completely wrong. Because I realize that even though Rebecca's social status, her economic status is completely different to mine, it doesn't take me long to realize that she has the same dreams and aspirations that I have. What I have for my kids, she has for hers. She dreams of giving them a better future. She dreams of them becoming educated so that they can have a different life to the one she's had. She dreams not only of just being able to get out of poverty, but she dreams of being able to be a significant contributing member of society. She wakes up in the morning and she wants to feel like if she didn't wake up one day, people would notice and they wouldn't miss her. And I'm driving back to Johannesburg after my interaction with Rebecca in my BMW to come to my beautiful home in Johannesburg. And I'm realizing we don't have any idea. We kind of dumb things down to a level that says to solve Rebecca's needs, we just need to throw money at it. But Rebecca needs much more than money. She needs a sense of purpose. She needs a sense of destiny. And at the moment, I'm feeling completely inadequate because I think to myself, how do I do that? But at the same time, I realize that I'm not expected on my own to fix everything that Rebecca needs. And in that moment, I then become encouraged because I say to myself, well, what do I have that I can use to contribute to helping Rebecca achieve her dreams? Because I can't make them happen for her, and I shouldn't. But what can I do to help? Where can I put a step that wasn't there before that she can stand on and then take that next step for herself and for her family? When I kind of wake up in the morning, it's the Rebeccas that motivate me. Yes, there are 600 million Rebeccas, but if we think about people as 600 million, that doesn't inspire me. What inspires me is realizing that every single one of those 600 million people have a story like Rebecca. And then I look at what my purpose is, and I look at what God's put in my hands, and I say, well, how can I use that to help people like Rebecca? That's what inspires me. That's what makes it worthwhile. There are plenty of easier ways to make money, but none of that inspires me. What inspires me is to say, so what do I have? And how can we use that to change real people, the lives of real people, not just statistics, but real people? And that's what motivates us to get into communities, to identify who those people are that we can raise up as champions and come alongside them and say, how can we help you be who you believe God wants you to be? So that's what inspires us. And I hope that doesn't sound too corny, but it's true.
I'm inspired by Rebecca.
Thank you. Yeah, it certainly was a big wake-up call. We had summed it all up. Throw enough money at Rebecca and it's sorted. Rebecca needs so much more than that.
Well, Dorian, thank you so much for your time today. It has been a fascinating conversation. I'm Kia Jacklin with the SA Trade Desk, and we hope you check out our websites for some more insights and thought leadership posted daily.